For those who don't already know, can you just explain to us what Redisa does?
Well, Redisa is a not-for-profit organization, or actually a public benefit organization, with a focus on environmental remediation and, of course, socio-economic development. Effectively, what our claim to fame is a concept called waste into worth. And if I was to just contextualize that a little bit, you know, we as human beings, we are really just parasites to this wonderful planet called Earth. As we are making advancements in our daily consumption through our daily consumption patterns, and also just with innovation, we are causing some serious damage to our environment. So much so that our future generations won't have any planet left, because we are depleting our resources at a rate that the Earth just cannot cope with. And on a day like this, such as Environment Day, it just makes us a little bit more cognizant to understand that we, as this parasite, we need to live in some form of symbiosis with the Earth. And we would like to see us move from parasitic relationships to mutual relationships. And so what the Redisa plan actually looks at doing is changing the structure of an economy from a linear one where we take, make and consume and then throw away, to one where we take, we make, we reuse, we recycle, we refurbish, and we close the loop, and we have the circular economy that's being birthed. Now, we've done that in the tyre industry through this waste into worth concept, because we basically see that waste is going to be the source of all of our resources in the future. And it is a strategic thing for our country to start looking at how we can harness our waste as a source of resource.
And I see here that you've been talking about a kind of insurance policy for the environment. Can you kind of explain that concept to us?
Absolutely. What we are doing at this point in time is we're manufacturing goods without considering the environmental impacts. We wouldn't use laptop computers or cell phones that aren't electrically certified. However, we are happy to consume products that aren't environmentally safe. If you look at the state of the world right now, the oceans are really experiencing a lot of trauma through the amounts of plastic that's being spewed into the ocean. I mean, we've seen recently about the sperm whales that have just washed up on the shores, and the cause of death through the autopsy was plastic in their bellies. We know that by 2030, for every 3 kilograms of fish, we'll be harvesting a kilogram of plastic.
Wow.
And this would be at a microparticle level, so it's able to permeate our cells. What we are saying is that we need to understand that we are part of a biosphere. So our products need to be able to be like the rest of nature. When something dies in nature, it gets reused, it gets reintegrated. So our products that we design need to also be viewed in the same way. And we need to start looking at a way that we can start ensuring our environment. And the way we do this is through what the Redisa plan has in fact done. We place the cost of the remediation at the point where it should be placed, which is the producer. The polluter needs to pay. And when we place that cost, when we factor in the cost of dealing with the end of life of a product, we're sort of starting to ensure the environment of its remediation, that it won't be impacted by this product. But also what you're doing through this environmental insurance, it's taking away the responsibility from the industry and saying to the industry, you can now transfer that responsibility to an EPRO, an extended producer responsibility organization, such as ourselves, who will have a key focus and deliver that service to you to be able to deal with the waste. So it's almost like a medical aid, but for the environment instead of for humans.
Now, South Africa is doing extremely well in this particular instance. How did we manage to get to this point where we are actually the only country in the world that has made this a reality, with 100% of the industry using the tyre industry as a proof of concept?
I think our government has had a huge role to play here. They were visionary in allowing, firstly, for a plan such as this to be published, and to allow for all industry to be forced, basically compelled into dealing with the environmental impacts. Legislation is the thing that has created the success, and creating that regulatory environment is what has actually driven the success. To date, what you've seen Redisa do as a result of this piece of legislation is that we've been able to redivert 70% of all tyres that are manufactured into the country into an industry that supports 226 and small businesses and over 3,000 jobs. So what we're saying is there's been a study done by the Department of Science and Technology together with the CSIR. And the study looked at the impacts of, if we were to take 13 other waste streams, there are 38 in the country, and drive and develop recycling industries around those waste streams, what would the impacts be to South Africa? And they estimate that to be a 25 billion rand industry. So we do believe that, you know, we're on the right track as a country. So REDISA, as a result of this legislation and as a result of this collaboration between government and the private sector, have been able to be nominated as a finalist for the Circulars Awards at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January. And that's a huge achievement. Our CEO has recently been summoned to, he'll be in Brussels making representations to the EU. The Commissioner of Environmental Affairs has asked that REDISA come and present to explain the successes, because they've not seen this. Europe has been involved in recycling and been talking about the circular economy, but like one of them said to me the one day, you Africans have perfected it. So it's something that we can really be proud of. We've introduced a model that is revolutionary in that it delivers quick results, but it also addresses something that is extremely important to the South African challenge, which is high unemployment. And what you can do through diverting the waste and by letting us be less wasteful and more resource efficient is you can actually incorporate a lot of low-skilled, you require a low-skilled labor force to deal with the collection and the sorting and the preparation of the waste before it gets to the beneficiation stages of recycling and creating secondary industry products.
Now you say Europe is still, they are doing well, but South Africa is really taking a hold of this and doing exceptionally well. What about the rest of the African continent? Is this something that you would be moving around the continent to kind of put in place there as well?
Absolutely, I do believe that it has a lot of potential and it could deliver some excellent results in Africa, because our problems are generally the same. We have high unemployment, large volumes of low skills, and lots of waste being, not only because of the resources being here and the damage being generated as a result of extracting of the resources, but we also have a lot of dumping happening in Africa. And we need to look at ways that we can harness that waste and actually drive our economic growth. I think for now in South Africa, you must remember we've started this in 2013. We on starting year 4 of our journey, and we've seen a rapid uptake of this concept, which is fantastic for us. But you know, it's important that we actually make sure that this pilot or this proof of concept here in South Africa is tested well. By our 5-year term comes to an end at 2017. We're way on track. I mean, we've been able to take recycling rates from 4% in 2012 to 25% at the end of last year. So I think that's a phenomenal achievement.
Quite a fast growth.
Absolutely. And I think it's because as an independent body, our focus and our success is measured on how quickly we're able to establish a recycling industry. And by establishing a viable and sustainable recycling industry, what you're also able to do is develop and stimulate markets for these products. So your manufacturing sector, which is required here in South Africa for economic growth, is what we're actually achieving. One of the studies that we will be publishing soon has actually proven that some of the results as a result of dealing with it in this manner, we're actually able to add to the growth rate in South Africa. And I think if you look at where the focus is now as a country, we're looking at black economic empowerment, we're looking at job creation as a focus. I think that this is the perfect opportunity to harness this waste into worth concept and start looking at implementing circular economies in more industries. And really, we're not talking about just on a micro level. We're looking at it at a macro level, where what you want to see is product design being impacted through an environmental rating system. You want to see products that are designed with a cradle-to-cradle technology in mind. And that's really what the REDISA concept is all about, shifting our manufacturing sector to cleaner tech.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey Davidson, for joining us today. Very important to take a look at the work that you're doing. And of course, the growth. It's amazing to see that South Africa is doing so well in this industry.
Thanks, Renee. It's a pleasure.